And right now, if you go to my Patreon account, you can keep me in this nice leather background. I don't have a Patreon account. I'm kidding. Anybody looked up Dave Chappelle? You happen to see? If not, check him out. There's some strange. There's videos out there where people think that he's a clone and all this other stuff. There's some sort of demonic force over that man. And the reason I bring it up is I think you can clearly see the manifestation of some of the stuff that I was talking about. That through some sin, I don't know, something changed. He looks completely different. It's not the same guy. I wouldn't go as far as to say a clone, but there's something changed, you know. Kanye West, he was very arrogant. He made himself pretty hateable, and then he learned some sort of truth, and I think by then it was far too late for him. But the man basically cried out to the people that he trusted in his life. And after that rant, he disappeared. We haven't really seen him. Showed his face one time after that with his hair dyed gold, much like many other program multiples in Hollywood. And then he disappeared. We haven't seen or heard from him since. I don't know. I don't know what happened to him. But he learned some sort of knowledge that really hurt him. I know that. There is a hierarchy set up that's completely surrounding the children of God. And it's at every aspect, from the lowest end to the friends that are surrounding themselves with us, and whatever, you know, the sin may be. In my case, it was heavy drug addiction, so that when I tell stories like this, I'm like not credible to the world at all, in the rational world that we live in. And with others, I'm sure it's whatever works, you know. Now that all that, I do find it odd that, you know, that whole addiction thing just disappeared after. I've slipped a few times, but in messing up, those people really showed their face. The ones that were trying to get me to do the drugs, they showed me what they were after. And a point that I'm trying to get at is, as I know that may be unbelievable, just to some people, that the last story that I told, it's really hard for me to put into words how the evil presence that I felt, and that the sinister attitude coming off of those two officers, and that if it was something simple in the physical, I'm sure they could have just hurt me, but they were after something else. I think that if they would have, you know, harmed me, it would just have started over. But I won't get into that. It'll confuse people too much. I also didn't go to jail that night. I've got warrants. They're just for traffic. But and I'm not saying that arrogantly. Please understand. Like, this has happened on multiple occasions where there were police officers there, and one time they straight up found drugs in my pocket. Class 1 felony drug. Drugs, foil. Dude just took it out of my pocket, threw it on the ground, stepped on it. He was not doing me a favor. Dude didn't like me. Like, the way that they treated me the rest of the time, it doesn't. Again, it's like that other video I was saying. They never wanted me to not do the drug. There's some. We're shown an illusion where these specific individuals have authority, where I've been in situations before where other people that had nothing to do with the department, and the cops are asking them, what you want me to do? Like taking orders from this person who is not a cop, who has no authority over them whatsoever, where they could have just got completely angry, slammed me on the ground. You know, even whenever they went to restrain me, they weren't forceful about it. They almost had to ask, I don't want to say ask permission, but they slowly and gently guided my hands behind my back to place them in the cuffs, to restrain me for whatever they expected to happen next that didn't. And the whole them taking orders from somebody that wasn't a cop, like I knew who this person was, had nothing to do with them, and yet it was almost as if they knew each other when, I don't know how to explain this. How can I paint the picture? There's a hierarchy in this world that we don't see, that's got more to do with the powers of darkness than you could ever believe. You can accept this or reject it, but I've seen it over and over. And that there's an illusion of authority where, you know, this person is a politician and this person is a janitor. But then that politician could be taking orders from them, because in the kingdom of darkness, they're way above them. You know, I don't know how to put into words other than to go through these long, drawn-out stories, you know, in detail, and then it's still really hard to do it that way. I'm just, you know, even if I sound completely crazy, I know I'm not the only one that's surrounded by this evil. Now it's masked itself with a smile and a hug, you know. But I'm just trying to get it out there to the children of God that are under spiritual attacks. There were times where there was one time a chick invited me over, and we did some drugs and we started fooling around. And because of that narrative, like I was saying, that belief, that that's what they thought my personality was, I don't think she ever thought that I was gonna, you know, mess around with her. And because of the drugs and the way that stimulants work, it's kind of an all-night thing. And but she kept communicating with the mirror. Like there was a mirror in the room, and in the middle of all this, I'm trying to keep it pretty PG because this is a Christian channel. Even though it talks about drugs and stuff, it's hard for me to communicate this. I mean, yes, the stories are full of sin, but there was something in that sin that that has to do with that other world. I don't know how to put it into words. We're like in the middle of being intimate, and this person is responding to something that I couldn't see, only when my back was turned to the mirror. Like, it just... And... I don't know, man. I don't know how to paint the picture. But I know I'm not the only one. And I think we're kept from each other on purpose and surrounded by all of them so that we fall. They're trying to destroy something. No different than what they were back whenever Lucifer was after the seed of David. But it doesn't work in a father begets so and so begets so and so. It's something about the soul. I really believe that they can see something, a mark across our forehead. I could get into that, but it's basically, I just noticed it a lot. I believe that whatever this is, however they can see that we can't, that they can see that they can clearly see the mark of our Father across our forehead. I was kept away from a friend of mine one time. He had cancer. He's a little bit younger than me, 2 twin boys. And this is all around the time, this is right before everything fell apart in my life, when I quit talking to God. But really then, I didn't have the best relationship with my father. It was kind of one of those, just like living in his grace and didn't realize how much he was doing for me, so I was arrogant about it. I was, dabbling in drugs, but working in the plants, so a $700 a week drug habit was really not a problem when you're making, like $2,000 a week. And I just completely throwing away every blessing. So I was kept away from him when he got really, really sick. And on the night that he died, I was allowed to go in the room with him just briefly. And I walked in the room and sat down, and his family was crying, mourning, because he was on the verge of death. He kept speaking to something else that was there. And the whole time he just leaned over and whispered. You have to understand, he was so weak. I mean, he was on his deathbed. The cancer had grown over his shoulder and into his lung and collapsed it. And he's leaning over and he was speaking. So he was clearly speaking, but his whispers were so light, if you weren't right next to him, you couldn't hear him. And I don't think that it was meant for anybody. So after about 5 minutes of being in the room, because if his eyes weren't focused on you, then he wasn't, he turns and he saw me. When he saw me, his face lit up. I mean, he just, and with all the strength that he had left, he kind of just picked his hand up like that and was telling me to come there. Just to tell me that he loved me. That's all that he said. But there were other individuals there that, and they were in mourning. They didn't hate him. I mean, they loved him. But there was a person in the room I could tell that got real uncomfortable during that moment, before I got to him, before he told me that he loved me. Because they didn't know what he was going to say. Because they relaxed right after that. I mean, they were cringing. It was like screaming on the inside in their seat. I could feel it. And the whole time, and then he just went back to talking to whatever it was that he saw. My point is, on his deathbed, he was so close to the outside of the veil, and he could clearly see whatever it was, and it was angelic. He was a Christian, I mean, my brother knew God. I know he's there with him. But my point is, it's wheat and tares. There were some people that were related to him that loved him, that were there, that got really nervous, that was afraid that obviously they could tell, because I had been kept away from him, like I said, for a good couple weeks of his sickness. There was, he was kept away from a lot of people. I see it organized. You reject it if you want, but it was, he was kept away from select people. And call it angels. I don't know what he saw, but I know that he was speaking to something. There were things standing in that room all around. People would say he would look up, and just he was talking to something else. I try not to focus on these, demonic stuff. I'm trying to share with everyone that the other side of it that I've seen. I was delivered from the drugs and stuff. There's human beings working for that side of it, but the other side, I mean, and that's why I made the Jesus is Alive video, because in that moment when I saw the demonic stuff, I said, if all that has to be true. It wasn't in that moment. I was scared to death, cried out to God. Later on, though, as I started seeking God out because I was freaked out. But in that moment, I said, if all that evil that I saw, if you just peeled the veil back just a little bit to let me see into it, all that demonic stuff, then all your promises have to be true. Then I'm completely encompassed by a world that I can't see, completely angelic, a beautiful realm. And I truly believe we shake hands with angels all the time. I could get into stories about that. That's for another time. But without a doubt in my mind that, you know, they're usually homeless. That's I think because when they show themselves in all their glory, people tend to want to sleep with them. Story a lot, Sodom and Gomorrah, you know what I mean? It's you can't change my mind on that. I know I've shaken hands with angels. I've let them down before when they've asked me for money. I was arrogant, 18 years old, just, you know. But that's, you know. So you should really take heart in the verse that says, when I was hungry, you fed me. Again, I probably did another really bad job of explaining some of that stuff about the hierarchy of things, but you have to see everything with spiritual eyes, including the people that are around you. Sometimes it's confusing. You know, I get things wrong sometimes. People say certain things and it doesn't rest right with my spirit, and immediately I got to question it. And, you know, there's a spirit of confusion that probably lands on them. A spirit of, you know, everybody's human. Whatever this is from the enemy rests in that they can confuse, you know. Say you got a Christian brother that's arrogant, and then you see that from him, and then it makes you step, like, you're like, is that one of them? You know, he's so arrogant, he's so proud, like Lucifer was right before he falls. Is he one of the, you know what I mean? Like, they rest in that to separate us from each other. Just be in a constant state of prayer, asking God to reveal you the truth, because we are so outnumbered these days, as it was in the days of Noah. But also know that if all of his promises are true, then as long as we're seeking first the kingdom, we have nothing to fear. My only fear is that I'll let my father down. God bless. Also, I needed to say this last thing because I made a video about this. My earlier subscriber saw it, but it got deleted. And whatever God's placed on my heart. So, this is my preschool yearbook. In 1991, I went to a school called Oaks Montessori School. More importantly, there is an individual in here that I met years later, and they were much older than me. They were not in the same grade when I met them as they are in this book. They were like at least 3 years older than me. They had already graduated high school, and so anyway, I noticed the picture of the individual. I lived with him for a few years, and I sent it to him over a message that you'll see. And I said, is this you? Same first and last name, looks just like him. And they said, I don't think so. She's way prettier than me, way cuter than me, something like that, LOL. Trying to make a joke out of it. There are laws and rules in this world given to us by God that even the enemy has to follow. I think that they can break them, but there'll be consequences for it. You know, there's always a decision to be made in a way that costs. I know that it was that person. Doesn't make sense. All I'm saying is, again, the world doesn't work the way you think it does. Time, I'm not sure, you know, could this person actually be younger or older? I don't know. But what I'm saying is it doesn't make sense to me for the person to say, I don't think so, when they could clearly just go yes or no. Like, Do you remember going to this school? According to them, they grew up in New Orleans, where I grew up in Hammond. It's just not, you know, that unclear answer of I don't think so just doesn't make sense. The other thing, I came up with a motorcycle idea after my wreck. It was so I became obsessed with bikes and how to make it better and safer for people on motorcycles. And I could spend time telling you about the idea and all that, but it's the important thing is this. I made a presentation to send to a company called Scully Helmets, which later folded. I sent it off on the 6th of May, 2016, and it was returned to me on 7/25/17, which means it took a year and almost a month to get back to me, which is quite strange. The company had folded in between that time, but it was like way after I had sent it to him. Like, it should have got there to him. As you'll see in the email, they told me where to send it, and I wrote their address on the box. Said the address didn't exist, and it would have gotten to them long before the company folded. The point is, if anyone knows anything about numerology, if you look on here, there's 11, a 5, a 2, a 4, and a 777. In the occult, 11's always used because it's like a mirror. The 5 and the 2, they're inverted. They're flipped, you know, the 2's flipped upside down. The 4 is always used when there's some sort of death, some sort of, if you look into the celebrity, you know, there's all this videos out there, it's like Illuminati sacrifice, but you do see a correlation with 4s, a lot. And the 777, Aleister Crowley wrote a book called 777 and other magic, something about magic. You know, lucky number 7. There's something there that was making claim to this idea. It was a brilliant idea, and it was as if something was waiting and they needed me to die first, and then they could profit off of it. There's a song by the popular band Fall Out Boy called Centuries. And I would encourage you, if you're going to watch the video, to pray over it, that the music doesn't affect you before you do. But it's got a ton of visual images of Mary and what's supposed to be the devil, which turns out to be an angel of light and all that. But in the bridge of the song, he says, "We've been here forever, and here's the frozen fruit. I could steal forever. We are the poison youth." I don't think that this is just a random number that was sent in the mail. Think whatever you want. But this idea was potentially worth millions of dollars. And I sent it out to every company I could think of. Just enough of the idea, with not the entire thing, so that they still needed me. Tesla, Kawasaki, Yamaha, helmet companies, Senna, they do the comm system. It was a whole suit. The entire interactive suit would save thousands of lives. It had police and military applications. It was a great idea. And I did send out enough information about it that we should have seen some sort of evidence where they could have took that and used it. Even after Scully folded, I sent an email to the Cross Helmet, which is another helmet company, just about the 911 applications. Is a simple algorithm to basically call 911 if you got in a wreck and were unresponsive. You know, thousands of people go missing every year. 2,500 people on a bike because they're riding by themselves. And we've seen no evidence of any of this whatsoever. In the world where people take information from other people and they produce something that makes money for them, they don't need my permission, especially over an email where they've just been given the idea. Again, my point is, the world doesn't work the way you think it does. There was a name written across that, And I had to die in sin before they could use it. Take it or leave it. But we're talking money now. And it's nowhere to be found. How much more proof do you need? God bless.